on today's episode of the Grind, Sleep, Repeat podcast.
If you go into the gym every day or every time that you go in for a workout and you just keep picking up those same 15-pound weights and hitting those same 10 rep schemes, like you're never, ever going to see progress. And not to mention, you're not going to be able to hold on to that muscle mass when you do incorporate the running.
Because typically, if I'm doing every muscle group when I'm not in a half marathon prep, I'm training everything twice a week. So it gets hit on maybe a Monday and a Thursday. Whereas right now, it is still getting hit twice a week, but the volume is a lot lower. So the intensity has to really come up. And I think that's really important if your goal is to maintain muscle.
Welcome back to the Grind, Sleep, Repeat podcast. This is our episode 3 of our half marathon training prep. And today we are going to talk about how to continue to strength train and get stronger while also being in your half marathon prep.
Yeah, just because we are signed up for a half marathon doesn't mean that we are excluding strength training. And actually, I would argue that continuing to strength train throughout an endurance event prep is actually going to help you get stronger. It's going to help you avoid injuries. So we're going to run you through what we're currently doing right now with our strength training and ways that you can structure your strength training to stay ahead of mobility restrictions, muscle imbalances, strength imbalances that are eventually going to lead to an injury. And I think if you're always just running, you aren't going to be as aware of those strength imbalances, those mobility issues, because strength training is really going to expose those things. So let's run through our strength training, what we're currently doing, and how it's going to help us build into this half marathon prep. And it's going to help us PR our half marathons later this year in October.
Yeah, so we are in our 3rd week of our half marathon prep. So as of right now, we still have 3 days of strength training. On our first day of strength training, we are doing an upper body day. Second day is a lower body. And then that 3rd day of strength training is a full body day. Jordan and I actually were just talking about this. And as those miles get heavier, throughout the prep, we may turn that full body into another upper body day, keeping that leg day just for 1 day a week, because the goal is to amplify that intensity on those strength training days. So if you have 1 day where you're really, giving everything that you have on your leg day, you may only be able to recover properly with that 1 leg day, as opposed to that full body day being able to turn around and go into a run the next day.
Yeah, and the 3 times a week strength training is really, really low frequency for us. So we're used to strength training at least 5 to 6 days a week. So for right now, it's really, really low volume. So each workout has to really have purpose.
Yes.
So like Alyssa was saying, it's not like we're just doing a simple 3 exercise leg workout. Like we're doing heavy compound movements that we're trying to overload for the anterior chain, for the posterior chain. We're doing sets to failure on isolation exercises. We're doing 3, 4 sets. We're adding some drop sets in. So like we're still training really hard with our strength training workouts, and we're still trying to build muscle and build strength. So I think that's one thing, I just got asked the other day, like, you're only strength training 3 times a week. Do you think that you're going to lose muscle? I don't think that we're going to lose muscle if you're training in that style. You're still training hard. You're breaking down your muscle tissue. You're taking sets close to muscle failure. You are trying to progressively overload. So if a weight is light, you're trying to bump it up and get the next 5 pounds, the next 2.5 pounds, get the next 2 reps. You're eating enough protein, you're recovering enough, you're doing all those things, you're going to be able to hold on to muscle. And I think as you're building into a half marathon prep, it's important to make sure that you are not just getting more frail, that you're, getting weaker in your muscles. You might be becoming more cardiovascularly, aerobically fit, but are you losing strength? Are you developing all these crazy mobility restrictions? Are you losing muscle? I think that you want to try and build fitness into a prep. And that's really what we're aiming to do, is to build strength. Are we going to put on a lot of muscle in the next 12 weeks? Probably not, just because our caloric expenditure is so high. But again, that's not the main focus. The main focus is to PR a half marathon while maintaining muscle mass. If we can, try and build it, but we still want to build strength and we want to stay injury free. And I really think that training hybrid and structuring it the way that we're doing right now is going to allow us to do all those things in one program.
Yeah, for sure. Our main goal is to be functional. And I think keeping in mind that at the beginning of these strength training days, so like we mentioned, doing 3 days a week of strength training, we are focusing on these big, heavy compound movements at the beginning of the workout where you can, give your everything at the beginning of that workout. And as the workout, you get deeper into that workout, you can move to those accessory movements. But also keeping in mind that when we are training for a half marathon, this is not a time to go into a caloric deficit. This is not a time to, really focus on like this body recomposition type thing. We're really just focusing on fueling our body properly, ensuring that we're getting enough protein, ensuring that we're getting enough carbohydrates to recover from these intense workouts. So you should be able to give full effort in those strength training sessions, because if you are in a calorie deficit and you're not fueling properly, it is going to be challenging to give full effort in those strength training days, as well as turning around and doing a run the next day.
Yeah, I think that's the mistake we made our first half marathon prep. We've mentioned this in the podcast before. We were both training to get in the best shape of our life for our weddings while also trying to train into a half marathon. And we got married in September, and then we had a half marathon in late October. So we were like, 8 to 9 weeks into that prep by the time we had our wedding. But my personal goal was to reach 8% body fat. And, I was in a caloric deficit while still trying to strength train like 5 days a week and also training for a half marathon. It just doesn't work. You just can't give the effort that you want. And right now our goals are performance based. So this is not to say that you can't still maintain a healthy body composition,
Yeah,
that
for
you
sure.
can't, that you're just going to put on body fat or not be able to lose body fat. You can still lose body fat. And over the course of this half marathon prep, like I started a little bit over 200 pounds, so maybe like 205, 203 to 205, depending on the day. My guess is throughout this prep, I'm probably going to be closer to that 195 to 198 range. I'm just going to lose weight just by all the miles that we're racking up, all the calories that we're expending.
Unintentionally.
Yeah, not
Mhm.
intentionally. It's not an intentional caloric deficit. So again, if your goals are performance based, the nutrition is a huge piece to the puzzle. We're going to be covering that in a future podcast episode in depth, talking about caloric needs, percentage of macros or breakdowns for half marathon preps, and just as a hybrid athlete, how do you fuel your body and how you kind of reframe that mindset rather than just thinking of eating to lose weight, eating to gain weight, and just being a robot with your caloric intake and your food intake.
Yeah, and so now that we understand that the fueling process goes hand in hand with the strength training, you also want to keep in mind that if you have specific areas where you're more weak in, you want to make sure that you are especially prioritizing on those things. So if you have a muscular imbalance in your left leg and your right leg, you want to make sure you're incorporating single leg movements to continue to strengthen those. This is the time and the opportunity to continue to keep those things in your program, because if you let those things go, you're going to experience injury, you're going to experience discomfort when you're running. So putting together your program, make sure it's, just because Jordan and I are doing our days upper, lower, full body doesn't mean that maybe for you, maybe you have certain areas where you have weaknesses. You need to focus on where you can build those weaknesses while also being in your prep too. I think that's important to keep in mind because, everyone has different goals and different priorities to focus on. And I think that the second that you lose sight of that and you just come into the gym and you're like, I just am weightlifting just to get in some strength movements, that's when those injuries are more prone as well.
Yeah, and especially with strength training and running and half marathon training, I think the injury prevention is one of the biggest benefits of strength training.
Yeah,
Obviously, it's going to help you build muscle, build strength. It's going to help you work on your body composition goals and build the body that you want to build through strength training. You're not going to build the body that you want through running. Um, Strength training is really what's going to build the body that you're looking
for
for.
sure.
But the other really good benefit of strength training, like we mentioned earlier in the podcast, is injury prevention. So for runners specifically, some of the main areas that we're going to run into issues are going to be the ankles, the calves, the feet, the knees, the
The
hips,
hips.
the back, all these issues that start to happen. Now, can that be because of specific joint related issues or structural issues? Yes, it definitely can. But a lot of times when we see injuries or pain or things like that start to happen, it's because of your body compensating in some way because of a weak muscle, because of a tight muscle, because of a unstable muscle. And we can improve all those things through strength training. So as you start to build into this prep, as you're increasing your mileage, you're increasing your pace for an endurance event, strength training is so crucial to maintain or keep kind of rechanging and revamping your program based on the feedback that you're getting from your body. Do you start to develop a lot of knee pain? Okay. Are my ankles tight? Are my calves tight from all the running? What's going on in my feet? What's going on with my hips? Are my hips weak and my lateral glute muscles aren't firing and my knees just slightly is caving in on a squat or a run? And over time, that's putting my knee in a bad position. There's so many things that you can really look at. That's one specific example with the knees that strength training is going to help you diagnose what's going on. And then you're going to be able to strengthen or create more stability or create less of an imbalance between a muscle group that's going to help you to run with less pain and less injury.
Yeah, and there's a lot of other factors that go into that as well. Like I know you created a video recently over shoes. Shoes can play a huge factor in that, making sure that you have the right pair of shoes to help you, with injury prevention as well. Are the shoes too small? Are they too narrow? All of that goes into factor as well, but also incorporating a dynamic warm up that is going to fit your specific needs to get you equipped and ready for that run. Because what I do before I go into a run is actually different than what Jordan does, because we both have different weaknesses, or we both have different things that, we take a little bit longer to warm up. So, for me, it's the hips and the ankles that I really have to focus on. So it's important to just make sure that you craft your dynamic workout to fit your desired needs before jumping into a run.
Throughout this half marathon prep, supplementation is crucial as hybrid athletes to refuel, recharge, and show up for our next workout ready and prepared. We utilize our entire FitGrind supplement line to show up recovered and ready for each workout. We utilize protein after our workouts, electrolytes before, during, and after runs, and using our greens to boost our immune system and improve our digestive function.
If you guys are ready to take your fitness to the next level, head to fitgrindformula.com. We're going to leave the link in the description below, along with a discount code to help you save some money on the products.
Overall, if you are signing up for an endurance event or any event, any fitness event in general, you want to make sure that you're having enough time to be able to complete the workouts. I think with strength training right now, we're only strength training 3 days a week. So our volume within that workout is a little bit higher than normal. And right now our workouts are running, at least 1 hour to hour 20, which is pretty long for a strength training workout. I really think that, once you start to get past an hour 20, hour 30, I think the intensity starts to drop off to the point of where you're not really going to be able to make progress. It's kind of just junk volume. So, and it's not like we're taking 5 minutes in between sets. Our rest breaks are a minute to 90 seconds. So we're just trying to cram a lot of strength training into the workouts. But same thing is you want to make sure that you take the 5 to 10 minutes to go through a full dynamic warm up before a run. Don't just hit start on your watch and go for a run. You need to go through a full dynamic warm up. If you guys have questions on dynamic warm ups or any sort of warm ups for strength training, let us know. And if we have a feedback on that, we could do a future video on that, about what specific warm-up exercises you should do before a strength workout or also before a running workout. So overall, just make sure that you have enough time to complete the workouts, especially as you start to build. I think another mistake I see, we were talking about injury earlier, something I want to mention is with your program, overall, the design, I think a lot of people also, they build too quickly. They don't give themselves enough time. Again, kind of building on the time concept is you want to have at least like 10 to 12 weeks to build into a half marathon prep, especially if it's your first one. You want to give yourself enough time to slowly ramp up the volume, because if you start to ramp up volume too quickly, you're going to run into injuries. It's just too much for your body to handle at any given time. It's the same thing at the gym. If you can bench press 100 pounds and then the next week you go and you try and bench press 150 pounds, it's not going to happen. You might get hurt. It's the same thing with running. You have to slowly acclimate your body to more mileage and more volume, and that's going to really decrease the risk of injury. So the time quotient is huge. Not only the time of the workouts, but also just having enough time in your overall program to build fitness and to really reach your goal, whatever that might be for your endurance event.
Yeah, for sure. I'm always preaching to, make sure you're getting enough food and things like that too with your strength training and your running goals as well. But today we're talking about strength training. So keeping in mind that when you're going into a strength training session, if you go into that strength training session and you're like, oh my God, it's 2 o'clock, I haven't eaten since 11, your strength training session is going to be just complete trash. So you need to make sure that you're fueling just like you would for your run. Fuel with purpose. Make sure you're carb loading and getting enough protein during and around that strength training session, because you're going to be able to give more effort in that session. Just like we've talked about again, in a run, if I'm running for over an hour and I don't bring along any gels or any, sort of electrolytes, then I'm going to eventually crash. My body's not going to be able to keep up with that distance that I'm trying to go for. So same with your workouts. If you get into a workout and you're not fueled properly, you're not gonna be able to lift as heavy. You're not gonna be able to give full effort. So diet is so important during this prep too. And it's not, I hate to use the word diet because it's not, when you think of diet, you think of chicken, broccoli, rice, it's more of like just fueling your body with purpose and being mindful around the workouts. And it really is, that's a job in and of itself. Like, even we've talked about this too. Like, shoot, I forgot to bring my lunch today. Like, those are big things that when you're training for something like this, like, the fuel is so important. If I go for a run and I eat a donut before I go for a run, I'm going to feel like absolute trash.
It's
Like,
gonna be a bad run.
it's going to be a terrible run. If I even eat a donut before a workout, like, for me, that doesn't work.
No.
It just doesn't. The energy that you have during that workout, during that run, is just so much worse than if I'm fueling properly and I'm prepared for that workout or prepared for that run. It's just there's just such a difference.
Yeah, for sure. That's why we really want to go into depth in a future podcast, is because the nutrition, it's not just, calories in, calories out. It's not just, eat more food because you're expending more calories, or eat some carbs around your workout. Like,
Yeah.
you need to take a more specific approach. Everybody's very different with the amount of calories that they're going to need based on so many different factors. So we will cover that in a future video. I look forward to covering that topic because it is super important.
Yeah.
One thing I also want to touch on was within our strength training workouts, the exercises, the rep ranges, the sets, kind of everything that we're doing right now. Most of our exercises, like Alyssa mentioned earlier, you touched on this, the beginning of a workout, we have at least 2 to 3 compound movements that we're trying to overload. So for example, on an upper body day, it might be, for me, it's incline dumbbell bench press, it's a weighted chin up, and a shoulder press. So those are 3 compound movements that I'm in a dumbbell row, that I'm trying to overload on and try to get stronger at each week. Most of those rep ranges are going to be in the lower 6 to 8 rep range. I'm trying to get stronger. As the workout progresses, the way that I'm really trying to add volume, especially for, being a guy, I do need a little more volume to hold on to muscle and to build muscle, whereas sometimes females can get away with a little less volume. A lot of times, instead of doing 3 sets or 4 sets, I might be doing 4 or 5 sets on isolation-based exercises. So, at the beginning of the workout, I'm doing 3 to 4 sets, 6 to 8 reps of my heavy compounds. As the workout progresses, I'm decreasing that rest time. I'm trying to create more fatigue because I'm not strength training as much. And I really think that only strength training 3 days a week right now, my mindset around each workout is I got to try and make this count as best as I can. I got to break down as much muscle tissue as I can. I got to reach muscle failure. I got to focus on getting stronger. So if I'm doing a chest fly, my program is going to increase in volume. I'm doing 4 sets, 5 sets of 8 to 12 reps with 45 seconds rest, no more than a minute rest in between, and really trying to make those 4 or 5 sets really count. Because typically, if I'm doing every muscle group when I'm not in a half marathon prep, I'm training everything twice a week. So it gets hit on maybe a Monday and a Thursday. Whereas right now, it is still getting hit twice a week, but the volume is a lot lower. So the intensity has to really come up. And I think that's really important if your goal is to maintain muscle, which mine is. I've worked my ass off to build muscle over the years. I don't want to lose muscle mass. So that's the mindset really going into these strength trainer workouts, is start heavy. Heavy is always relative to you. When I say heavy, it just means, weight that is challenging for that 6 to 8 rep range. And if you can get 8 reps, you're going to increase the weight and try to get 6. And that's how you're going to overload and keep track of that in a notebook, in an app, Whatever you got to do, write it down on a pen and paper, and then start to increase volume. You're isolating muscle groups. You're still training bodybuilding-esque. At least we are training bodybuilding-esque.
Yeah.
I say that when I say bodybuilding, I think a lot of times people think like these massive bodybuilders. Bodybuilding just means you're trying to build muscle and you're trying to build strength and you're trying to build your body composition. That's all I mean there. So we're really training most of those isolation exercises in that like 8 to 12 rep range. So
Yeah.
that's kind of what my training looks like right now and the mindset going into my strength training.
Yeah, that's a key factor. If you're somebody who just started training for a half marathon or just started incorporating running into your program and your fear is to, that you're going to lose muscle mass, you have to go into each workout saying, okay, how much weight did I do on my bench press last week? How much weight did I do on my, chest fly last week? So that you can build from that. If you go into the gym every day or every time that you go in for a workout and you just keep picking up those same 15-pound weights and hitting those same 10 rep schemes, like you're never ever going to see progress. And not to mention, you're not going to be able to hold on to that muscle mass when you do incorporate the running. So that's why that piece of this puzzle is so important, because progressive overload never stops. That never ends in your program. No matter where you are in your program, you always want to try to push to that muscular failure, especially when we're trying to build muscle. But really, especially now when we're incorporating the running and the strength training, we have to prioritize that for sure. So that was a
Yeah.
good point.
Yeah. The point is, the program is so important. You wouldn't just show up to a half marathon and be like, I ran some miles. We'll just see how this goes. Let's, ride them across the chest and touch my toes and let's just go run. No, well, maybe you would. Maybe some people would, but most people would follow a program. Strength training is the same way. So if you at home are listening to this podcast and you're like, man, I really don't know what I'm doing in the gym. I don't know how to mix it with running. I don't know how to work those two things into a program. We also offer online coaching. So we are trainers here, gym owners here in Nebraska. But if you are not local and you are interested in putting a structured program together that's tailored to your goals, we would love to help. I'll leave the link to our website and our coaching page down in the description below. It's fitgrindformula.com. You can actually set up a time for a phone call on our website where we can chat more about your goals and tell you more about how we can help. So overall, the gist of the podcast today: strength training and running, even during an endurance prep, they can coexist. Again, you just have to have the structure. You can't just wing it, just like anything. And there has to be intentional purpose with the strength workouts, with the running workouts. And I think that by strength training and running together, you're really going to be able to build fitness as you go into the prep. You're going to be able to decrease your risk of injury and just show up on race day ready and prepared.
Yeah, for sure. I think all of those things are super important when training for a half marathon. And I hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and we will continue to take you along our prep, and we'll see you guys in episode 4.